Hi, in this tutorial I am going to talk about some of the rendering technique of the V-Ray, materials, and I have chosen a very simple object, a small car toy. But mainly we are focusing on some of the techniques for the material, for creating the materials. So the object actually is not very important, but I have chosen this because it is glassy and have some features that you will see it in a couple of the minutes. Okay, the scene has managed by layer, so I can deselect every object, every element of the scene, and I have the tire, wheel, and background. Background is just simple shape. We have learned this in another tutorials. If I want, just show it very fast and quick that how you can create this. You can use several methods. For example, you can create the line, just back to the layer, one of the in on height layers. Okay, create the line and then extrude your line, and beside you can make it smoother with the uh, your fillet chamfer, or even applying the mesh smooth, or you can use one very simple plan with no any segments, then convert it to editable poly and hold on the shift, drag the edge to create the new faces, and something like this, and apply the turbo smooth. So our background is not something difficult, and I have the tutorial about V-Ray Studio scene, so you can watch them from my site. Then I added the light to my scene, two V-Ray light. You can see, because I will provide this scene so you can check everything for your work. The two of them are actually, I think they are same. Yes, I have chosen the multiplier 4 is according to your scene, how big is it or small, so you need to test it. You need to, before applying the material, you need to add your lights and test on your object if it is too much or less. And invisible is active. I didn't use a high sampling, just 8 is enough. And color of the white color. The second one is also the same setting, just its multiplier is 6. Pay attention that one of these two lights actually they are not in the they are not parallel in front of each other, and the one of them which has the less multiplier, I move it to the corner of my studio. The reason is because I don't want this curve shape in here has any shadows. I want it to be very smooth and white color, and even we couldn't see it. So I move this, instead of be here, I move it a little bit inside the scene. Okay, so we don't have any other special things, and From the render setup, from the command panel, the output size is a standard size, and of course we already applied the V-Ray from the assign renderer. I'm using the frame buffer, and I always suggest you to use it. Global switches, nothing special now. Image sampler, I use the fixed, but for the final render we will use the adaptive DMC sampler with the high setting, but for now I just use the fixed. I am not using any environment as it is a studio lighting. It is not that we don't want to bring any environment to our work. And V-Ray color mapping, I use exponential. It is very important, and in my V-Ray course I have been explaining them in actually our project, which will be in the future. So we will use the exponential, and subpixel mapping and affect background are active. Dark multiply and bright multiply doesn't need don't need to change, but the gamma must be changed to 2.2. Indirect illumination, uh, I'm using irradiance map and the light catch with a very low setting. If you want to learn more about the V-Ray, I have a course in my website, online courses, and the V-Ray for architects, and you can join this class, or if you don't want, still there are a lot of free parts, and I have some parts for about the rendering. I suggest you about to watch it for the irradiance map. So back to our work. So we don't have something so special also for the render setting that want to explain it. I have the camera, so I added the normal camera, target camera of the max. The material I use for the background is just a V-Ray standard material without any changes, so I'm not going to talk about this. I just say the only changes is that I made the color as a white color. So I will go to my layer manager and one by one bring my object, and I can give them material. First is the body. This part, actually let's see the whole this toy has a tires and the wheel, tires, and these two parts which are actually chrome. The material is chrome, so I call them chrome here. And body, which is a wooden, made by the bamboo wood. And the glass part actually is a heavy plastic, but I call it glass. And if I show the lines and actually the edges, you can see the edges is so triangular. The reason is because this toy created with other softwares and not 3D Max, so the faces are so triangular and so much faces, but it doesn't matter for our work. And even I want to show some techniques, that's why I choose this toy which not created in 3D Max, because you may face this problem in your work when you import other object from the other softwares. Well, so we start by body, which is wooden, bamboo wood. I don't use the UVW map, so I delete it. Well, we will have two kind of the faces. One is in this part, let me hide the light and the background, and also I don't want to see the safe frame. Okay, we will have two parts because these parts are cutted, so we already cut, so the material will be different. I just choose them one. I want to give all of them the same material, same material ID. So I need to select these faces in here, this side, but the problem is that our faces are triangular, so we cannot, for example, use the edges and a loop or ring. It doesn't work here, and it is really difficult to select them as because of the shape, and we cannot also select them one by one. So in this case we will use the by angle, which is it will select faces according to the angle that they have to each other. So for example 45 is selected, I will click here, so the faces with the 45 degree less than 45 degree will be selected. So I will click here again, easily another part selected. I will click here. Okay, this has some problem. Control Z. So I will choose another face to click here, again problem. So I just hold on the alt and click in here another faces which are extra and selected. So you can see they deselect when I hold on the alt, and very easy I select the border of this bamboo wood. So I give it the material ID of 2, and to make sure the other faces are all 1, I just go to the edit, select invert and set the 1. So another one is actually number 2. So select here and I choose as a bamboo and apply the V-Ray material. So I will choose a V-Ray material, V-Ray standard material. We have two choices. One is that we find a texture of the bamboo and apply it to these faces, and another is to create the uh, texture of the bamboo wood in Max. So I don't want to find any bamboo wood, so I want to create it with what I have in 3D Max. So I will use the composite material in the diffuse as my color actually. I have the composite material, sorry, composite texture, composite, not combustion, composite, and I will have the composite material. And actually I want to say that we have the other in our V-Ray. Actually we have the V-Ray blend material is the same, but we don't want to use a material, we want to use a map. So I use the 3D Max composite material, and I can have the several layer. This is example of the bamboo wood. So we need to watch several of these pictures and sample to know what we are going to create exactly. This is also not a perfect one. So what I will do and how I use this, I will use the color of this sample. So I will go to my rendering and view image, and I open my bamboo wood picture in the max. So what is the usage of this? I will go to utilities panel, color clipboard. I need to take some of the example of this color and use in my material. Click on the one of these samples, click on the sample screen color, and I need the dark and the light colors. So I will choose one of the darks and one of the light. If you want to make it more complex, also again you can use several. This is the light and one of the actually the middle one. You can hold down the click and just move it. Okay, this I want a little bit harder. Okay, these three samples are for my color. Bring it down and I will use the noise map to create this texture. So first color and another light color. I make my sample bigger to see it clearly, and I'm not seeing anything because my size is very big. Maybe in other scene this size is small. You need to test it and you need to see if you can see the sample easy or not. So I make it small, for example 5, so I can see the samples. B2, but these smalls doesn't mean that inside the max also this we will have the same result. So if I apply this to my wood and if I render it, okay, I need to unhide what I have, my background and the lights. Okay, the lights back and my background back, and I will render again. Well, this is the result, and this you can see this the result is bigger than what we will see in the sample. So the sample is just for our reference, not exactly what we can see in the render. About the sample, you can change the size because sometimes you will use very small samples, small numbers, and you cannot see anything in your sample preview. So you can go to your setting options and change the render sample size. For example, here is 50 millimeter. I change it to 10 and I apply it. So I still cannot see anything. I change it to 1, apply. Make it a smaller, 0.1, apply, and I could see the shape and appearance of my material. So you can change your sample size if you really cannot see any detail of your procedural texture, procedural map. I change it to 2. I think 2 should be enough now, and the texture actually is scratchy is not the dirty same as this, so I need to change my tiling. I change 1 to 10 and you can see it is scratching now. I just make the sample smaller to make sure you can see. So this is scratching. So this is the first step of my material. So I create this part. You can change the color or anything else later after you create the basic of your material. And I'm not going to change anything now. Everything looks fine, and also I can change this styling to very low value, 0.1, to make it absolutely a line. If they be bigger, such as a 2, you can see it's still not very well scratched, so I change them to the minimum, 0.1. The size 2 is enough for now. We can change it later. Okay, so this is our first layer. I create another layer here. Click on the add a new layer to create the second layer. I can change the layer order. The second one is actually just these hard color edges. So I will apply a hard edge color. We will use again the noise. I will use the same color maybe, and I just want those hard shapes. So actually I can use these two, the color 1 and color 2, as the same color, no need any changes, and just copy this to the mask. This part is a mask part, so I can come here and make sure I'm if the show end result be active, you will see the final result, but I don't want to see final result and just see the what I am doing now. So I deactivate it, and the mask, as you know, is a black and white color, so I will change it to the low value, the lowest value, and let's bring the black and white color, and let's change the values from high to also the low. And I think this is so small, maybe I change it to 1. Yes, and again scratching with the 10.1 and 0.1. So I reduce this to 0.4 and 0.3. Okay, let's back one step, and I want to hide these two, actually the top. Okay, the white color is the part that can be seen, and the black is the part that we cannot see. So I swap them, so we will see just these white colors. So what is this white color? Actually these hard color of the wood. So if I mix them with this, and if I active this, we will not see the layer which is the bottom. We need to change the blending mode. If you use the Photoshop, you already know what is the blending mode. Mode is for blending two colors and two textures. So I will use the other. I can test it, move it to know which is more suitable, and I do believe the multiplier could be good. So you can see these hard lines also on your work. You can increase them, you can make it more. These are your options. So I apply this material, is already actually applied, and just render. Here is the result. First I want to make sure I am not going to apply this material to this part of the wood, which is actually the cut and slice part. So I will back to my main material, click on diffuse material which we already created, and click on composite. Change it to the multiplier. Where is actually multi sub object? I cannot find it. Sorry, this material that we already made is totally for the biggest part of the wood. So I must apply the multi sub materials to my main material, multi sub objects material. And when I double click, I make sure I will choose keep old material as sub materials. If you discard the old materials, what we already created will be removed, so I am going to keep it. So this bamboo wood is the first material, and we just have a two material ID, so I just choose the two. And for this also we will use the standard V-Ray standard material. We will change it later. For now, just render the scene again, and here is the result. Another problem is the direction of these lines. We need to rotate them, but because our object has some problem, is already imported, so we cannot. And also we are using the procedural maps, we cannot really use the UVW map. Our UVW map will not work, so we need to rotate it in here. So I will rotate it on the Y. Maybe in our preview the shape is not, it will not be right, but in our final render will be right. So I rotate it. I need to rotate all of them. Sorry, actually the second part doesn't need, because it was just a color. You can see when I rotate, it's not look like nice, but in our result probably will be better. We need to test it. We need to change Y, Z and X to find it. Now you can go and change some of the parameters if you really need, and maybe let's change beat, and make this also smaller, 24. I will choose just this toy to not render other parts. Forgot about the first material, is actually the bump. We need the bump for this scratch. We use the same thing we use for our top layer here. Same setting, just change the color from colored actually to white and black and white. Paste it and just change them to the black and white. And let's render again to see result. Okay, we could see it with the different angles. think this value 30 could be enough, but if it is not enough, we can increase it. And you can see actually in the sample how it is changing. This may make it quite blurry, so we don't make it so high, just 30, but we also can decrease the size. Let's see the final to the 1, and now is okay. So I go to the next material here, this part, and again I will apply the noise material, noise procedural texture actually, not material. This time we don't want this be a scratch, and we want it to look like the dotty shape. So I change it to lower values, maybe point, maybe 1, and fractal is okay. So I will just change the colors. I again need to choose the color, yellow color, so I will just copy from here, paste it. Okay, so is the result. Maybe we can make it a bit higher, and from the other side we do not need to scratch. So as I say, we don't need to change anything. We need to it be dotted shape, and we need to apply the same as a bump, but maybe the bump be smaller even, and harder, and let's render. Okay, you can see the size is so big, so I need to reduce the size. So the size of the color, I choose a 0.1. Now it's quite better. However, I don't want this to be so yellowish. So again choose this, paste, and this be whiter color, and maybe fractal, and this noise 1.5, 150, and render again. Okay, this is what we have now. You can see the dotty shape here with the big bump. So it is when you cut the bamboo wood, it will look like this. And I'm not changing any other parts. This material will not have the reflection and glossy. Bamboo wood is different kind. Some of them also have they cover it with a glossy layer, but this one doesn't have, because I already saw the real toy. That's how I know how it look like. Back to the camera view, render the scene for the last. I don't want this, cancel, and this is how the bamboo wood for this car toy looks like. Well, the next is actually the glass or the heavy plastic. So I again will use the V-Ray material, and let's use the layers glass part, and I will hide the body. We don't need this. So I call it the glass, and our uh, glass material or plastic material is fluorescence material. It's so shiny. So my diffuse I will create, because this is a green color, a very shiny and fluorescence color. And okay, this green fluorescence color. My reflection, of course it has a reflection very high, but it will use the Fresnel reflection. This heavy plastic, actually not so heavy, just a plastic, doesn't have a high IOR. Usually in the toys they don't use the high IOR, so the material is not so high. So I will change this to 0.2, 1.2. If I just unhide the Fresnel, you will see 1.2, 1.6. If I can see any changes now. Okay, here is not so exactly, we cannot see anything in the our sample preview. So I will check back the Fresnel reflection. You can see until now the color, and I will apply it to my glass and I render it. Okay, the result, but it doesn't have any refract. That's why it doesn't look like the glass and a shiny material. So when I want to choose the refract color, I can make it white color, and if I just render this, this looks like glass now, and it's already removed our green from diffuse. So if you want to know why it removed the diffuse, I again say that you can join to our class arc for V-Ray for arc and architects. So I already explained about material editor, so I will not explain much in here. So refraction, I need to make it as greenish, so I will change it to little bit green color. So you can see these two difference between these two color is inside the green, and very small value. So if I render it again, you can see it become green color, but it looks so flat. I just save this for comparison. So because it's all look there is no any variation in the green color. I want some place be darker, which has more thickness, and some place be lighter, some variation in the color. So I will use the fog color. Again a greenish color. See here in the green part, I'm very light green, light value. Even it is very light, but it has a much effect, so we cannot make it so dark. That's why I'm not using very dark value. And you can see even just a small changes, it may create big changes in our work. So keep in mind, in the fog color we usually, not always, usually do not change so much. Do not use actually very uh, strong colors. So this is with the fog color. I just want to compare these two. This also be save and set B, and you can see there is a variation. Now is the first without fog color, and this is with the fog color. If I actually zoom, you also can see it better. You can see there is a variation in the colors, and some places are dark, such as here, which are thicker. So I already create my green fluorescence color. I render it again. Frame buffer, and make sure this is not selected, and I'll render the whole scene. Okay, the result until now. The next is actually the wheel. The wheel here is actually plastic, very simple material, but again very standard material. Wheel, and I need to select both, actually the four wheel. Just right click on the layer, select them, and apply it. It is recommended to not use because the wheel actually is white color, but we won't use the 100% white color. Maybe we can change it a bit, very small value, but it can have a good effect. So not 100 per white color, and the reflection, I can use 100 reflection with the Fresnel, or I can use this less. Sorry, maybe 20. Okay, and the result, it doesn't have any other options, no reflection, no refraction, sorry, but it has a glossiness, so I will reduce it to 0.8 or 0.7. It has the highlight and the glossiness. So I render the scene again, and this is result, quite good. The next, I need to create the tire. The tire also are green color, so uncheck the tire, and vary material, uh, the color will be the same as this color of the diffuse for the glass, and a very small reflection such as 10, and reflection glossiness 0.7. We want very soft highlight, and let's render it again. Just make sure we already apply to the tire, so select them and apply them. Tire is actually the raw material. Okay, until now it looks fine, but one thing that I want to suggest you is, when we have the rubber material, we can use the fall off. So the fall off with the two color, one lighter and one darker. For example, I choose this a bit lighter. I will save this to see the changes. And if you see there is some problem in here, is the problem of the modeling. So I render again just this part. Well, and we Just save this also. See if there is any changes. Yes, you could see there is for sure changes. Just a little bit more variation in the color. So keep in mind, it is very good when you are using the when you want to create the rubber materials, use the fall off with the two different colors. So the last object is actually is a chrome. If I back to my layer and the chrome, a small part here, I just hide these two. You can see this chrome which connect the wheels, and I select them. You probably know how to create the chrome material. Very easy one. We will make the diffuse black and make the reflection white, so this called chrome. So just let's render this part again. I again want to save this, and I want to notice you another point about the chrome. So I save this, and I will go to material editor, choose my chrome, and this time I will use the Fresnel option, Fresnel reflection, but IOR not be 1.6 and be 16. Actually the range between 16, higher than 16, maybe 20, 25, but I choose 16, not so much. It's look like the same as when we didn't have the Fresnel. But when I render this again, I just render this part. So what is the difference? You can see the second part. Now this is the second part with the Fresnel. Is darker than the first one, which was without Fresnel reflection. The reason is because the first one without Fresnel reflection has a lots of very strong, actually very strong reflection, so it is reflecting too much, and even it lost the shape and become here totally white. But when we use the Fresnel, we avoid too much reflection, so it get a little bit shape and looks better. So keep in mind, sometimes you can change the shapes like this. We just, it looks same, but it get a bit better shape. So our materials already finished. We already create all the materials that we want. Now it's time for rendering and compositing with Photoshop. For this tutorial I will use also the V-Ray render element. V-Ray render element in here, and I will use the material ID. So I will add the V-Ray material ID to my render elements. V-Ray material ID, and I don't need to do any changes, but I need to define a material ID for each object. We have 5 materials, so the first one can be number 1, second can be number 2, no matter what number, just a different, it will make the difference between the objects. 4 and 5. I didn't choose for background, you can choose for the background as well. So I will hit the render button to render the whole scene again. While it is rendering with the V-Ray frame buffer, you can see here the alpha channel, we don't have alpha, and V-Ray material ID, which we already add to our render elements. So if I go to V-Ray material ID, you will see each material is rendered with one color. I think I did one mistake. My wood, I should back to the here and choose the material ID. I back it to 0, and here I choose the number 1 for the whole material ID of 1 and 2. Let's render it again so we can see the RGB, alpha, and V-Ray material ID. Well, rendering done, and one thing is that I didn't change my render setting. I didn't use very high quality, but it still look like high. So we no need always choose very high quality in our material. Change everything to the increase the subdivision, and everything be increases so much. And one note that I just change it to the 1, and actually all of these sub material also should be changed to 1. That make this V-Ray material for the wood, for the both material ID 1 and 2, the red color. So I choose again 1 and 1, or even I can choose another number. Now it's time to saving my works. Will be in the RGB color. I push the save button. So I will push the change as a save it with TJ. I prefer TJ and override to 1. I already explained my site as a free tutorial what is the gamma, and if you watch it you will know why I choose here as a 1. Save it. Okay, everything is fine, and I already saved this. And I will go to the, we don't have alpha, we have the material ID. I need to save this also with the TJ, and I will name it as ID TJ, and the same override. Actually this is not so important to override or not, because this is just for as a selection options. Here you can see the final work. Until now we still have something to do in the max before we start the Photoshop and composition. So back to the max, we need to use the ambient occlusion layer also. So in the V-Ray we don't have the render element for ambient occlusion, so we need to make it by ourselves. I need to make another material, V-Ray light material, and we use the V-Ray dirt as a map. Okay, here we can choose the radius. I will use the 5 as a test, and we have the subdivision. I use the high value. For our rendering setting, I need to come to the V-Ray. We don't need to use shadow. Override all the scene with this material instance, and we no need also we no need to lights. We no need to have the aliasing, but I will keep it on. Is fine. We no need to use this thing. We need to back to the linear one, and indirect illumination can be deactive. So I just render this again. We don't need material ID, just ambient occlusion, which is actually shadows around our work. I do believe the 5 is not a good value, so I will change it to the 6mm radius to make it quite better. So this is the result. I will save this work also as a ambient occlusion TGA, because we saved the first one with TGA, so we have to save others also with TGA and save it. Okay, last step is the compositing. So I will control A to select all of the material the render of the material ID, and control C. Come to the color, control V to paste it. I will use this just for selection. For example, I will choose the green part easily, which is for the glass part, or the other part the same. So the reason that I render the material ID is just because I can easily select them. So I select the glass part, hide this, then I can work here. I will come to my adjustment and I will use for example color balance or any other things. I can just affect on this part. So now I can change the color and refine and modify my color. I no need always in the max try to change everything exactly, render again and again to find out the true color. I can just make something similar and change it in the Photoshop or After Effects, same as now. Even I can change it to some other colors. So I can change my glass to even other colors very easily. The point is that here I want to be more green color, so I just change it to green. That's fine. Then I want to change also the tires, so I will back here again, select the tires. There is a small piece, okay, and hide this again to see my preview. Back and again apply the color balance, so it will just affect on the selection area, and again I make it more green color. So you can see without these, first the glass and now the tire. So we are changing the colors in the Photoshop. After we change everything, I don't want to change the other parts, it looks fine for me. We need to apply at the top layer a level adjustment. Level adjustment is very important, and almost in all the projects we will apply it. Same as now, I will apply it, and high, active and deactive. You can see when we apply the level, unclear and actually dirt layer from the our render will be removed. So now it's totally white and clean job. About the level, I just said one tip about this for my experience, from my experience, that when we apply the level, here has the different shapes, different chart, and I call it actually a mountain. This mountain have one start and one end. So is the best is that our rectangular black and white, one be at the start of the mountain and one be at the end. So if another picture this mountain shape is different, is usually the best result that we take this to the start of the mountain and take this to the end of the mountain, so we can get some nice result. After that we can apply the ambient occlusion. So again, Control A, Control C, and at the topest layer Control V. I change the blending mode to the multiplier, so you can see these small shadows, which is actually in the real world also will be appear, but it is so strong. I will reduce the opacity. So without ambient occlusion and with ambient occlusion, there are small shadows on the edges and the border of each object, but we cannot achieve it with the max and V-ray. So we need to use the ambient occlusion layer. So almost this ambient occlusion will be used in all the projects. If it be movie, will be mixed with some software such as After Effects or Combustion, or if it is picture, we can mix it with the Photoshop. So it gives a depth to our work. You see here this part and this part without ambient occlusion looks so flat. and now looks nice and natural. If some place in ambient occlusion is too dark, same as here, we can use the eraser with the less opacity to reduce their darkness. If you want to know how much it changed, you can go to the history, back to before erase and after erase. So it had a good effect. So it is how we could render and actually have a render our toy, our product with the V-Ray and composite it in the Photoshop. I hope you like this tutorial.